Awesome. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started because I know everyone's time is precious. So, welcome everyone to today's webinar series, part of our EagleView series, and we're looking forward to today's great topic around being able to work on your business and how do you actually get that done. So, let's get started, Michael. I'll leave it to you to give us a bit of an intro and get us started.
Well, what we've been noticing, and I think we've talked about this before, is that a lot of business owners that we're meeting, a lot of the companies and departments, it always comes down to exactly what you see right here, a real plan and real world execution. It's what we realized with the EagleView is that there was different formulas that was coming out of being able to see your business at a high level and being able to plan it out and being able to execute it. There was another piece that was happening. And what we doing our research, we started realizing that there were other top CEOs that was using certain strategies to make sure that they had time to work on their business. Because usually if you're a founder, CEO, or running a department, you have to have time to be able to develop your part of the business better, not just continuously running it. You have to have time to build it. And this is what this session on, see why C-level and top executives are what they're implementing to make sure that they can reach their goals, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk about a little bit about us and who's on the call. So I'll let you go first, Michael.
I am right brain. If you don't notice, by my voice, I'm the black guy. So it's been a pleasure, with here at Smith Durrant that we've found a way to bring creativity and logistics and systems to the market to truly help our clients and to reach certain levels. And my world has always been in creative branding, startups and building companies, working in sales and marketing for years, from directors positions to VPs, and then finally deciding to do my own thing. And that's what brought me and Nate together. So, I mean, if you've ever saw any of our webinars or any of the blogs that we put out, hopefully you kind of get a synopsis of who we are as a whole.
Absolutely. Well, I'm the left brain and I'm the Aussie guy. So as you can probably tell by my accent, I come from the deep south of wonderful Australia. And been in here, Vegas, since 2007. So that's like 10 years now. Time has flown. And my background's all just been the school of hard knocks. It's been running businesses with my family since I pretty much left school. I went and did a few things and then got straight into family business because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I learned over the years that I just wanted to be in the business of business. And that's the power of what Michael and I get to do today is we help other businesses, and all the experience I've had over the years from actually running my own business, buying and selling businesses, running manufacturing businesses. We had, at one point, 120 employees, which is a big mouth to feed every month. And so having those headaches as a business owner and understanding what business owners go through today, and then the joys too, we got to sell our business, which was a great success, and selling it to a public company and took a long process. So a lot of the things have been there and done that in business. Now we share that with our clients today, and Mike and I certainly love what we do, and that's why we're here today.
Yep. So to dive right into it, you've hopefully you'll start to hear there's even marketing campaigns that'll be going out more, really showing people how to look at their business from a high level. And that's why we call it EagleView, real business planning and action steps. The biggest point about being able to see your business from a high level is to be able to know what to do next. Sometimes what we found is that some business owners, they have it down what they should do, but they don't know all the details to the true process. If you are looking at trying to figure out what's the best way to increase sales, well, a lot of people say, well, my goal for this quarter is to increase sales by 2% or 3%, whatever it may be. But they don't actually have the action steps to get there. And then the habits that needs to be created to get there. So that's what this is about. And hopefully by the end of this webinar, I suggest you make sure you have notes. And if you notice on our webinars, we don't like to put a lot of slides in. We want to spend more time trying to explain some of these things, because when you go to reading and listening, you miss something. So as we go through, make sure you take notes. And remember, at the end, I think, Nate, we do have our emails in there. You can always email us. You can either email me at mdurant@smithdurant.com or nsmith@smithdurant.com if you have any questions.
Absolutely.
Dive into it.
All right. Well, so let's talk about today's topic. And, the headline is very powerful, and it says, "Stop trying to work on your business and learn how to do it." So for those that are joining us today, something in here attracted you to get on this because there's something happening in your business where, it's often the old adage of, it's not what you need to do in your business. Sometimes it's what you need to stop doing. And today we're going to be talking about how you can implement that. How do you make sure you get what you want to get done in the week? So today's going to be some real world applications. So Michael and I are going to be discussing actual things we do ourselves, we do with clients to help keep them on track. So we'll talk about the systems and that allow you the freedom to, grow your business inside and out, because, that's what you're here for. At the end of the day, you're in business to make money, and that's what we're here to help you through.
All right. So when you look at it, here are the areas that we're going to focus on. Techniques to change habits, define your pillar points, which we'll explain what that is, declutter your week, and key techniques to eating the elephant. And I know all of us have heard of, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And this is kind of the synopsis of really focusing on what? How do you plan your week? And ultimately, to get your week plan, you should know what your month is planned. And then ultimately get your month plan, you should know what your quarter is planned. If you're planning for the week, there's no way you can truly have an efficient plan that covers you for the quarter, because you're working the wrong way. You should be working backwards. And some people even go for the year so that they know what they need to be doing each month to what they need to be doing to each quarter, to each month, to each week, to each day. It is a time process. But anything, if you live here in Vegas, you've seen City Center, you've seen all these buildings go up. We have general contractors that deal with some of the things that go on the strip, and the details that go into that planning is serious. So why wouldn't we as a business do the same thing for our business? Really plan it out. Just think of yourself as a business architect. We can't use that as much as we used to anymore, right, Nate? The National Association of Architects told us we can't use that term, but we're going to use it today. Business architect. You literally are blueprinting your business growth, and if you can't do that, then you're going to miss out on the ability to do that. And we're going to show you how to do that.
Yeah, and even just a preface, I think, Michael, for the listeners today, is what we're going to be explaining to you as a business owner or as an executive or a manager of a business is that, everyone has different levels of responsibilities they need to do every day. So an example would be a small business owner that does pretty much everything in their business versus a CEO who has frontline managers. Today's process will work for either or. It's just how fast it can be implemented, because one of you is doing a lot of what we call day-to-day business activities, and the other person's a little more focused on managing the company. So the principle works for both, but just to preface that, if you are a small business owner, you have to take this on board as if you could just improve your week by 5, 10, 20%, working on your business would be a big difference. Whereas a C-level person that's already got employees and infrastructure should be the opposite. It should be, how do I improve my flow by 70, 80%, just because they have the bandwidth. So that's certainly something to understand and just be aware of when you're listening to this process.
All right, let's dive into that. So there's 3 R's of habit change. These are things that no matter what, this is a part of everything that has to do with creating a habit to actually get to this part that we're about to show you, what's going to actually help you get there. And that's reminder, the triggers that initiates the behavior, routine, reward. Remember that, we got all these smartphones today. And I remember I was driving, and I was, of course, not supposed to be texting and driving. or even in putting in my calendar, and I realized I had, reminders. So I just, simply voice said, remind me to enter this in, so that it would trigger me, because a lot of times we're holding everything in our mind, not realizing we're not multitasking, we're multi-switching. So if you don't have something to continue to remind you what you need to do, then it just goes out, the whole thing of out of sight, out of mind.
Really?
And if you have things that are out of sight, out of mind, then you're wondering why you're not reaching your goals, because you don't even have your goals in your mind. You don't, it's always taught to look at your goals every day. And some people say that's cliche. Yeah, we hear that, but it's true, it's real. You should know where you're trying to go. As we are driving and we're traveling out of town, we're always looking at, where are we trying to get to? There's a destination, and there's, seeing how far are we away. That we do that on regular life. We should do that in business. And the other thing is, your routines. Nate, you can dive into on routines.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's with business, everything in business is ultimately a system. If you go to the extreme of what Ray Kroc built with, the McDonald's franchise, that's why they can have teenagers run their business, because it's built around routine. It's built around systems. So in your business, it's about having that behavior routine to kick in. So that's, today we're going to be going through how do we develop that actual routine of what am I going to get accomplished this week? Because a lot of you, see, also, we say it in Australia, and I'll interpret it to America's terminology. It's like running around with a I guess I'll just say it here because I get so used to it, like a chicken with its head cut off, right? Because that's what happens. You come the end of the week and it's like, oh my goodness, what did I get done this week? Where did my week go? I didn't get any of my projects done, or I didn't get any of my goals done. And that's because there's no routine. There's no behavior created to actually set yourself up for success. So that's certainly the routine.
And then when you look at reward, it always comes down to this. If you've actually achieved something, you should feel good about it. And I know it's plenty of you, because I've done it. I've had my to-do list. I had everything planned out, and I still didn't feel accomplished at the end of the week. Now, some of it was because, I was just being busy. And then some of it was because at the end of each thing that we did, there was nothing to say that we actually won. There's nothing to say that it felt good. If you realize a champion is really born out of their ability to not only just fail, but to win. If you never get the sensation of winning, why would you want to continue moving forward? You just developed a routine to just, you win a client. No one goes out to have a drink or go out to eat or celebrate. We just move on to the next thing. But what if you had that great big elephant that you had to eat that week and you achieved it? Well, give yourself a reward. It doesn't have to be huge, but give yourself a dose of what is it called? What's released when there's that feeling of achievement?
Is it the dopamine?
Yes. And, because there's chemical reactions to you achieving. And if you don't feed it, then it never means anything. That's why we're always looking, for some people, they say you're looking for that next high, that adrenaline rush. That can be, you jump out of airplane. Once it's done, you're looking for the next thing. And then that won't be enough. You look for the next thing. But it keeps moving you forward, moving you higher. Well, you need to do this with what we're about to share with you. Give yourself some reward. So always have reminders. It needs to become a routine, and you need to reward yourself, reward your team, reward your company for them actually achieving what they've just set out to do.
Yeah. And what I was going to say before was running around like a chook with its head cut off. And then I realized Americans may not know what a chook is, but that's a chicken. All right. So let's get into the actual guts of today, which is the default calendar. And you can call this a default calendar, default diary, default week, whatever you like to call it. But here's just an example, just so you can visually see the end result of what you need to get to in order to achieve working on your business that you need to do. And so the thing I want you to pay attention to on the right-hand side there is just like a basic legend, and it's categories that and we're going to go through this in detail in a moment, but it's just categories for this person. This is an example of a salesperson's role within a company. So it's broken down into these colors, like actual calls and meetings I need to have, training, certain types of calls I need to be on the phone with, marketing strategies, things like that. And then you'll see on the left-hand side, they've pretty much taken that layout between Monday and Friday from, 8 till 5 and said, here's the large chunks based on categories that I want to do during the week. Now, one of the first things usually happens when we present this to, a manager, C-level, or a business owner is my week is so chaotic. I'm doing things all throughout the week, and this is never going to work for me because I'm always interrupted. And, obviously we have all these stories, what we call them, that come up from the owner at the time. So if you're telling yourself right now what story you might have, and that's like, well, I can't manage my week this consistent, and I'm always got interruptions, or I just have, if someone calls me, I have to go pay attention to my client. Look, the end result here is, how do we improve your week, period? And in order to do that, we have to slowly start improving it. Are you going to literally switch your current week that could be in chaos, or it could be, a good solid week and you're trying to tweak it? How do we move from that to something like this? Well, it can take time. It's not going to happen literally overnight. And like I said at the beginning, and I prefaced, look, if you can improve your week 5, 10, 20, 50%, then you've done some good things around working on your business. So that's our intent with here. This is like an ultimate goal. If you thought about yourself as an owner, and it's like, are you working on managing the team throughout the week? Do you do sales? Do you do marketing? Are you in the trenches? What are some of your activities you might have to be doing? So this is the end result as a tool doesn't really matter what it looks like. This is just something visual that you can, so everyone can see what we're trying to get to. Whether you've got this in some Excel sheet or Word document, or you want to use your calendar and block out time, the vehicle of what you use doesn't really matter. And we're going to take you through the steps to develop something that looks like this.
And just remember that whenever it comes down to creating a default calendar, if you look at some of your favorite celebrities, you look at some of your favorite speakers or business people that you follow, they have default calendars. And in these default calendars, there are certain things that help them stay on track, because there's certain things they may do every week. There's certain things that that they put in place to where their focus is. So as that you're going from this meeting to that meeting, or this call to that call. Well, if you block things out, it's really about you creating your own boundaries. For you to actually run your business, especially if you don't have a lot of staff, it's important to have a default calendar, because now they know how to deal with you. They know how to interact with you based off of your boundaries. And this is what I like to call is a major thing for me, having a default calendar. These are my boundaries. I have my business time. I have my family time. I don't try to compartmentalize everything, but I do know that there's certain things that go on every week, every month, that are there that I build things around. And within that, it starts to make you more structured. So when those got a minute meetings come in, like you got a minute, that 1 minute turn into 45 minutes, those go away, because you're like, I got to stay on my schedule. And it's not to the point where it's not real. Like I can't manage my time minute by minute. Well, if you're in a position to get to a level of growth, you should be able to manage it by 30-minute increments.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. So again, let's now get into some of the steps to get into it. The principle, though, is just the last note on this visual slide is you'll see how it actually works out a percentage on the right-hand side there. The point of that is, at the end of your week, what you're really looking for is how much time did you spend based on your high-level categories, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Just say, for example, you're a business owner and you said, look, I should be spending, 50% of my time managing my team, and you find out that you're only spending 20% of your time managing your team, then it tells you there's something broken there, because you know where you should be versus where you are. And that's why, very high level, if you can think about your week in percentages, it helps you go, okay, I've got to focus on moving that from my 20 to 50. How can I go from 20 to 30 to 40, et cetera? Because that's where you should be, versus, where you're in the business because of the break things that are just happening throughout the business that's putting you in chaos, that tells you where you need to focus working on your business as well. So very key.
And as we go to the next slide, go ahead, Nate. As we go into the next slide, the one thing, especially like if you have to deal with sales and you're trying to figure out how to increase revenue, well, how many revenue generating tasks are you doing within that week? Especially if you are in sales or you're the one that's more focused on bringing in revenue. If you're only spending a day out of 5 days, and in that one day, maybe 2 hours just responding to some emails, and you wonder why you're not increasing in percentages of your growth or your revenue, then you're able to now look at off of default calendar and say, okay, how much time have I actually been dedicated to growth?
Yeah.
Well, you'll realize if you never read the book called E-Myth, it's a great book, E-Myth, and they break down, in which we kind of use in the midst of when we start creating these default calendar and how we teach our clients, is that you have entrepreneur tasks, you have management tasks, you have technician tasks. Technician tasks is just things that you have to do to make sure you keep the company going. You know, these are the projects, these are the things that are what you offer your services. Well, guess what? If you spend more time doing that and you don't spend time much on being the entrepreneur, they call it the entrepreneur hat, which is the things that generate revenue and, you know, getting sales and things like that, then guess what? You're going to always have tasks, but eventually you're going to run out of tasks because you don't have any revenue. Yeah. And if you just focus on management, which is maintaining, keeping things operational and going, then guess what? No one's doing the projects and no one's creating revenue. So eventually you're not going to even have things to manage. So it's being able to find the balance and where things fit and what they mean to you. So it's also knowing each task, what hat to put on. So let's dive into the 10 steps.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I thought of something else for our listeners, is that this is not only just for you. This can actually be rolled out to your team, which is a very valuable exercise. So you as an owner, if you've got sales managers, sales teams, administration, any level in your business can actually do this exact same activity. So that's a good thing just to make a note of as well. All right, so make sure you've got your notepad or iPad and pen, whatever you've got handy, and actually write these 10 things down and make some notes because we're going to go into detail of each one of these 10.
And remember, you can also just, if you don't have time to write, like you're like, I don't know if I can write all this, just screenshot. Screenshot your computer or your, I don't know if you listen to it over your phone, whatever it is, screenshot it and you'll have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. So number one is define your role into major categories. So we touched on that. So the examples here are, you're looking for no more than about half a dozen, it can be 3 or 4, 5 or 6, somewhere in that range. And you're saying to yourself, okay, I want to break my role down. So if you're a owner, you're breaking it down into maybe some of your business building blocks. Like, okay, am I focused on sales? Is it marketing? Is it admin? Is it finance? Some of those type of roles, right? If you are more of if you're doing this for one of your managers and their manager is in sales, it might be broken down into things like actual, sales calls, lead generation, networking, just actual more high-level strategies within their role. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Michael? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's number one. It's nothing too complicated. It's just so that we can identify those major level categories. Okay. And jump in any time, Michael, if you want to add to, if you thought something too for each one of these.
Okay, and then when you're looking at number 2, defining pillars, which is, to me, is with my life, I have 5 children at home.
Your tribe.
All of them one in college, 2 are in sports. One is, they're all doing something. Not only that, we run one of the homeschooling groups here, plus run a company and all the clients we have to do. There's certain things that has to be pillar points inside of my schedule every single week. It means these things don't move. That way because one of our pillar points is just knowing when I'm going to have dinner with the family, because it's important to be a well-rounded business person, is that that you have time for family. So with that, know that your pillar points are the things you're going to set up between Monday and Sunday that are this is where things are set in stone, that everything has to move around. You may only have 2 pillar points, but if you have more, then you put those in, because you may say, you know what, I have this meeting with these clients that should be in your schedule. Some people already have it pre-scheduled, have it on repeat. So that means anytime new meetings come in, they're around that. And you may have another part that's a pillar point, is that this is when I like to deal with possible new sales with new clients and new potential referrals and call them. That'll be Wednesday to Friday at this time. that means now you've created a boundary and pillar points that now you start to weave around other things around that. But think about your pillar points as the foundations of your week. That way that you keep everything in track.
Yeah. And other examples would be things like team meetings that you have every week. That's like, so there's team meetings are really important for your business. So they're pillar points that you have to do. They're in these slots and they're every week. All right. So number 3 now is breaking your week into 30-minute intervals. And the reason why we suggest to start with 30-minute is, look, we're not here to micro identify you to the nth minute. It's just, and 30 minutes we've found over time has worked the best, because an hour becomes a little bit too broad. 15 minutes is like, I feel like I'm a lawyer tracking my time, and then 30 minutes we've found is that sort of best average for everyone. So that's where you should start, and just put everything in chunks of 30 minutes. And that way you can always fine tune it later if you find it's needs to go up or down. So that's what we suggest to start with. Number 4 now is define your categories into red or green. So the categories we did in step 1 is now what you're going to do is identify these activities. Are they red activities? And what that means is it things that are really working in your business, and green activities are working on your business or are revenue generating categories. Okay. So for example, administration tasks, like if you're doing bookkeeping, finance stuff, if you're doing the actual production of something, if you're just doing stuff in the office that you could probably pay someone else to do, we typically define that as a red category. A green activity would be things like team meetings that you're holding, sales that you're working on, because as I mentioned, anything that's revenue generating is green. Because right now you may have to be doing those things. So that's where we want you just to identify it, because again, this just helps us. It's visual that, hey, these are red activities. Your goal is to reduce the red and increase the green. That's actually a priority for that. So you go ahead and do that, and that helps you understand. And you can even do this further, because once you start to look at any of the subtasks within your categories, you can obviously see whether they're red or green as well. So,
and a good thing to think about this also, especially depending on the position, if you're an owner of a company, and we do this not only for owners, but those that are department heads, is how you think about how much is your time worth? Literally, like what are you per hour? If you really were if you were running your schedule the way it is, and you say, what, it costs $200 an hour for me to do anything. Well, if you realize that you spend over 80% of your time doing red activities, and it really costs you about $200 an hour, you're literally losing money, because instead of getting someone else to do those activities that you could just pay someone else to do, you're doing them, which is taking you away from your green activity, which means that it's taking you away from the ability to create more revenue and generate more revenue for the company. So you're actually losing money by doing this task. And we always give a perspective. One of our clients, he was billed out, when it really came down to it, right about, I think it was about $600 an hour. And he was doing tasks that literally said, wow, I'm spending all my time. I'm losing money because it's costing me every time I go to do, and I mean, some minimal tasks that we don't know why he wasn't allowing his other people to do it. He did change after he got the perspective. It's like, it's caught, just for doing, checking on this box and make sure something's inside of it. It was a production company. It cost me almost $600 to just check on that, when I could make sure I created a checklist that every single time that we needed to get prepared for an event, my people would be able to go down this checklist and check everything. And eventually they created a habit, which means he didn't have to do it, which means he had more time to do other things like working on the business and creating revenue.
Yeah.
So break your time down. If you can, break down what your time is actually worth.
Yes.
Especially if you're an independent business owner, well, why not find someone that can do that for $8 instead of you using your time, which is costing you $100, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Two quick ways to calculate it is, if you're a smaller business, just work out what every sale is worth to you, and that's what you're losing versus, paying someone your $10, $15 an hour. Or another really easy way is just take the revenue of your business, either each month or each year, and just divide it by the number of hours you work. That'll tell you what your what your rate's worth, because it's very simple at the end of the day to realize that, hey, I need to start focusing on how I can get someone to help in that position so you can go and make that extra sale or whatever it is. So, I mean, as an example, our clients have moved through this transition period. So an example we've got is a general contractor client, and they were in the business when we started this whole process with them. They did everything from, they were doing estimating, they were doing project management, they were in the thick, they were in the weeds. And I would say that 95% of their week was just doing stuff in the business. And now it's moved to almost the opposite. They used to only spend 5% working on the business. Now it's basically 80 to 90% working on the business, and the other 10, 20% is in the business, because their job now is just managing people and building systems and infrastructure. And these guys are on track to keep doubling their business every year from that sort of focus. So that's the power of what this can do. All right, where are we up to now? Number 5. So now is actually just starting to create a draft default calendar. So based on the example we just showed you before, you can, I don't care whether you get out a piece of paper and you start to rule it up with your weeks and AMs and PMs and half-hour increments, use Excel, whatever, and just start to now write down your categories in those half-hour increments of what you think your ideal week should look like within reason, okay? Because remember, this is something you can improve down the track, so you don't have to get it perfect day one. So just start to lay things out, and you said, ideally, if I could get my week to be what I wanted it to be, what should it look like? And that's where you just create that draft calendar and just get it done. You visually look at it and go, you know what? I can get this done. Even if you've got space left, it's okay to say, look, I still have a lot of interruptions. I need to leave, a good 20% for just fluff. And that's okay too. Wherever you need to start is where you need to start, and you know what's going to work best for you. Just make sure it's an improvement on where you are today. So once you've done that, now the hard bit sort of comes, or this is where the rubber to the road kicks in, okay? So number 6 now is actually to test and record an actual week. So we call this like a trial run. So now what you're going to do is track pretty much your half-hour increments for the week and make a note of them based on the categories that you created. So let's say that, you were in sales mode, and for an hour you were visiting customers or you were visiting prospects. That'd be under your sales category. So you'd record that as actual, block. Whereas then if next minute you're in the office and you were, creating an invoice for a customer or checking the bank or doing some sort of administration task, and you can flag that under like admin, okay? And that's all you're doing. So come the end of the week, you just now want to say, this is what an actual week did happen, and you can sort of then calculate the percentages and go, oh, wow, I spent, 80% of my week doing administration, or I did 20% only on sales and I should be doing 60, or because it's amazing. It's, you certainly can't manage what you don't measure. You can't grow what you don't measure. So this is where you have to just measure your week. For some of you, it's going to be like, maybe you don't want to measure it because a bit of reality kicks in. So that's number 6, is really just start to just actually measure it. And then what you're going to do now is, based on what your actual was and your what you did in step 5, which is creating the draft, you're going to just make any adjustments, because you might say to yourself, you know what, there's no way I can go from where I am now to the calendar I want overnight. So you may have to make a few tweaks and adjustments based on recording an actual week, okay? So that's the purpose of that. So you make some tweaks.
And one thing about when you make your adjustments, you have to make them to your organic flow also, because you got to realize, depending on what business you're in, there is the human side of business that just things happen. And, a lot of things we don't even try to measure out. So like when I schedule meetings, I try never to go back to back unless it's, because in the midst of that, there's times of, I'm hungry. Well, what about lunch or, bathroom breaks, whatever it may be. We're on a lot of Skype calls, but also when you got to do travel time, you can't schedule 1 hour meeting and not actual implement that there's travel time. Because when you really think, oh, I have this much time, well, truly, well, travel time between where you are, where you're trying to get to, and the amount of meetings you have, that's all part of your calendar. So when you're measuring, make sure you truly measure as much as you can for that week. It's just like if there's this, they call it counting calories. If you use FitPal or FitBuddy, I forgot what it's called, but you can track all your calories. Well, you only need to do that for a little bit to kind of get a synopsis of what's working and how much you're actually intaking. So with the default calendar, when you go to make your adjustments, you do that first week, follow the default, make notes as you go. And like I said, this is a process in the working. Like Nate said earlier, it doesn't happen overnight. But if you stay committed to it, you're going to create the level of boundaries and productivity that you would never have imagined, because you are now in control of your time and you're tweaking it to a place that actually works for you. Because a lot of times we look at other people's focuses and goals and say, we can do that too. Well, you got to make it yours. So when you go to adjust, make sure you're looking at, you may need to move to 40-minute increments or 45-minute increments, or you realize an hour will work for you instead of 30 minutes because of what you do. So make sure when you adjust in real time to you, and just keep testing from there.
Yeah, and that's what number 8 is now. This is where you've made some fine-tune adjustments, and now you measure your actual week again, and now we actually started to compare it to your default calendar, and we're looking for the percentage differences. Okay, so that if you said, okay, my goal should be 60% of my week should be sales, and you're only doing 40, then that's where number 9 kicks in. We have to identify areas to improve and implement. And now this starts to come down to actually, how do I make sure I'm hitting my 60%, and what tools do I need to put in place? Everyone, look, it's the worst thing in business is what we call the gotta minute. If you have employees and you're a leader or manager, it's that whole, hey, have you got a minute? Have you got a minute? And it just interrupts your day like there's no tomorrow. So, all of these things well, then the question is, how do I improve or get rid of or reduce my gotta minutes? And there's the whole strategies around that. But that's the whole concept of number 9, is you have to say to yourself, okay, what do I need to do to improve it? It could just be procrastination. Could just be, I need to get on the phone and make some calls to drum up business, and I'm just not doing it. And it's just as simple as that sometimes, versus, implementing, for example, team meetings. You might be, it's a busy week, we don't need to hold team meetings this week, and you're falling down in that area. Well, what do you need to do to make sure they're happening, and are you driving the team to make that happen? And then lastly is just really, it's this whole thing is organic tweaking and constant improvement. So your overall objective is to constantly, how does your actual move towards your default calendar? Now, you don't have to necessarily track every week ongoing. What we suggest is the first few weeks you track and just see where you're on schedule. Then what you do is you all of a sudden now just start to work your week to your default calendar. So then perhaps, whether it's once a month or once a quarter or once every other month, just track a week and just make sure you're still on track, because it's easy to, what we call steer off the path and go back to your old habits, okay? And constantly make tweaks, because if you're starting to hit now your milestones in your default calendar and you're consistent with those percentages in your categories you want, maybe you need to now go to the next level and tweak it up a bit. So that's the whole idea of this is organic, and just let it be organic and ongoing and constantly improve it.
And one thing that you need to think about, especially if you go between 9 and 10, is there's always certain things that are in your business that eat up your time. And I call them, you should always kind of track down your time eaters. Your time eaters are the things that you probably do all day. So these are the 4 top time eaters that everyone deals with, but depending on what type of business you're in, you may have some different ones. But it's about managing your time eaters. And if you recognize them and put them part of your default calendar, literally put them in places where it's easier for you to do, like time emails are time eaters, text messaging, calls, and meetings. These are your top time eaters in anyone's business. If you manage these four things, your week, your life, everything changes because you think about those four things. Between those things, they happen all day long. Someone's emailing you, someone's texting or calling, and there's always meetings. So if you manage these four time eaters, that means you put boundaries on them. Because I was in this place. I remember I used to allow clients to call me any time of the day, weekend, any time of the night, emails, respond. Just because there was most of the time when you're not responding, unless you're in a support role, like if you have to be there, or like in the midst of, like, we have an IT client, they got a support line. You have to be there because you're a support, and it's part of your business service is to make sure that you get quick turnaround for callbacks or whatever it may be. If you're not in always 24-hour support mode. So that means don't check your email every single hour. Check it in the morning, check it midday, check it at the end of the day. Because truly, unless you're project based and there's certain things you're waiting for, the moment you see new emails come in, you are literally opening up the window, because there's literally another chemical reaction that when you get an email and you get a text message, you automatically want to open it. You automatically want to respond. It is also releasing chemicals in the brain that we must respond. We must respond. But if, like for me, I get in certain modes, I turn my phone off I don't want to receive text messages or emails or calls, because I may be in a creative mode. I may be in project, or when we're with clients. Because if you ever sat with a client and all of a sudden, especially with the new iPhone watch, it makes you look like you're looking at your time all the time. People say, well, I don't want to be able to look at my phone, so I got my watch and I'll peep down at my watch. Well, first of all, it seems rude because you're looking at your watch, which most people are thinking, okay, am I getting bored, or they got to go? So what you do is, for certain things in your default calendar, there's no checking emails, there's no checking texts, and there's no calls. Well, eventually, after you get past your anxieties, because you're going to feel anxious and you're going to have anxieties because you're always connected anyway. So you're trying to break that habit. Once you set those boundaries on your time eaters, and also meetings, you want to feel important. Make sure if you set a 30-minute meeting, you're done in 30 minutes. You want people to respect your time and also be okay with meeting with you. Respect their time. So when the meeting 30 minutes is up, there's nothing else to say. Make sure you get to the point and move on. And I believe in making your meetings, the hour meetings, 30 minutes. If you make them 30 minutes and they go an hour, if you plan that in your mind, then it's okay. But if you make it an hour and it goes an hour, now you've lost people's attention. They're thinking about everything they have to do. So plan your meetings based off of, if it only could last 30 minutes, and if it went to an hour, is fine, but it's very productive.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So there's a little quote here we just found that was very powerful from Robert Collier. And it says, "Success is the sum of all small efforts, repeated day in and day out." So very powerful for this situation, because look, it's repetitive stuff. And for you to be successful in your business, because everyone's always after that magic pill, and it's never easy. Everyone thinks that there's some get rich quick, powerful way to get a business. And yes, is there a bunch of people out there that have got some great things that have happened for luck and what have you? Absolutely. At the end of the day, most business comes from, blood, sweat, and tears, and that's what this is. It's you've got to constantly do small efforts every day with your default calendar, repeat them day in, day out, and that'll get you to working on the business instead of in the business.
Yes. So moving on to this next piece, key techniques to eating that elephant, which is one of the things that we've explained. I kind of went a little bit further with some of your time eaters. If you can remove those time eaters, you can actually start to break down that elephant. We call it the elephant of the week, elephant of the month. Think of the elephant as the actual task that if you got this accomplished, you felt like you did something huge. You did something big. And then the way that you actually eat that elephant is to break it down. So every week, most of us have a project or something that we're trying to close, a proposal we're trying to get together. We always have our elephants. If you find out lay out what your elephants are, and then from what you put as your elephant, you should lay out many tasks, many bites that helps you get there. Because sometimes I'm a person that also believe in, if you can take 2 days and only focus on one thing and get it done, that if you didn't, it would take you 2 months because you got it spread out so thin that, you really, if I sat down and I had 8 hours for 2 days, I would get this project done. Well, why not take those 8 hours? You say, well, I'll get calls. And, when you actually, if you want to run that test, actually do it. Take the calls, take the emails. But as you're taking the calls and the emails, see what was actually important, what actually would have changed your business, would it have lost your client? What you'll realize is most of them, all your fears are not even there. It's just that you've allowed that time, because you can always email people at the end of the day and say, hey, crazy day today. I'm emailing you, let you know I got everything. We'll have this to you. It's Monday now. I'll have this to you by Thursday. Boom, you're done. But you didn't do it in the midst of everything you were just doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here's a little extra tidbit for you of just how to get things done. If at the end of every day you do a brain dump of the things you need to do for the next day, it's proven, it works. And one of the biggest things is just writing it down on paper. With all the technology we have today, and I mean, I've proven this myself. I've used different technologies and to-do lists electronically and from your iPad and iPhone. And it's like you use it for a couple of weeks and then you end up, nothing beats just doing a brain dump and writing on a little notepad. So get a notepad for yourself that's dedicated just to what we call like your activity list or to-do list, whatever you like to call it. And literally every day, just rewrite out things you need to do for the next day. And the first thing you put at the top is what Michael's talking about, is what is that elephant you need to get out of the road today? Because if you see that there every day, you have to rewrite it out. You start to say to yourself, like, am I ever going to get this done? So that's like your big thing to focus on for that day. So at the end of the day, you're like, I had a great day. I got my elephant done. And what it also does is it helps your brain actually rest. It's, again, this is proven stuff where your brain, you've had it before. When you leave the office, you're driving home, whatever it is, and your brain just keeps working during the night because you're thinking about stuff I've got to do for clients or projects or people to call the next day. And you're just like, your brain never stops. You go to bed thinking about it and you're like, oh my goodness. What this does is if you just, I said, do it whether it's before you leave work or whether if you work from home, do it before you're out of your office, wherever you are, just do that brain dump and it alleviates the stress. You wake up the next morning with, oh, look, I know exactly what I need to do today. And it's a huge lifesaver. I know for me personally, I do it every day. I know Michael does it. And it just helps you with what you need to get done for the week and putting that elephant at the top. So,
and I'll just say this last thing. We're going to wrap it up. In a Mono Week, Nate can testify to this. On a daily average, I have probably between, not including personal, between 7 to 10 tasks that I have to get accomplished, from projects to calls. And sometimes they reach up to 14 different tasks, and I have to plan them out. But in a week's time, on average, when I finish my week, I go through my completed list. And sometimes I'm up to no less than 100 completed tasks that actually was done. Not saying I reached everything, but the things that I wanted to get accomplished and one of the things I tweaked, where I used to have, sometimes I'll get up to 15 to like 20 tasks, and I started cutting it back. I say, because I didn't want to go through a day where I didn't complete what I put on my paper, because I always put it on paper. Then I actually put it in my computer to have reminders. But what I decided to do is I said, on the average, I'm always have 5 tasks, one major frog for the day. And if you never read the book from, who was that, from Chat Home?
Brian Tracy.
Brian Tracy. It's called Eat That Frog. Which is eat the juiciest, fattest things for the first part of your day. Like whatever the thing you kind of run away from wanting to take care of, do that first. And the rest of the day will be easy and beautiful. I promise you, you will feel different inside if you eat the biggest frog of the day. Yeah. So I always have my frog of the day that no matter what, if I did this, it will work. I always have my elephant of the week, because I know at the end of the week, what are my major things I want to take care of. But at the end of the week, it feels very good to know that where some people, working on some of the same things every day and they're trying to figure it out, you've accomplished 100 different tasks and completed them because you had a plan and you executed that plan. So what I would love for you to take away from this meeting is there's a process to getting there. And if you truly are serious about making your business, your department, whatever it is that you place in your world to do, if you actually set up a default calendar, you set up a plan to get there, and you take it, and your time is very valuable, and there's no reason you should be throwing it away to any and everything. If you scan it, I mean, if you plan it and you put it in order, it's going to work for you. And looking at those, if you took a screenshot of our points, start right there. Start implementing those things and create your default calendar and try it. Please email us. Let us know what you think about it. If you need any advice, email us. That's what we're here for. And we're always open for conversation to, even if you see, as you're doing your default calendar, say, this is a great idea. Let us know what that idea is. We're always open to change and growth also.
Yeah, absolutely. So the key thing is just, what are your takeaways, from today? Hopefully you've got a bunch of notes there you've taken away. The ultimate thing is from today is get that default calendar created. Create that daily brain dump for your to-do list for the next day. If you can do those two things and work towards your default calendar, you'd just be amazed what can happen in your business in 90 days, let alone even just a month from starting this process. It's just life-changing, business-changing, creates money, puts money in your back pocket, all the things you want to do.
Yes. So we thank y'all. We thank everyone for getting on the call. And one of the things that I think we've shared with you before is our ability to do Eagle Views with you or with your company, and being able to help you plan out your quarter. We always base everything off a quarter. We know what the goals are for the year, then we break that down into quarters. And out of that, we break down the tasks and help you brainstorm everything that needs to happen. And this is for people that are not our regular retainer clients. This is just us helping businesses to get things in line so they can actually accomplish everything. Everything is based off of seasons if you don't think about it. Right now, we're just finishing up winter. We'll be going into spring. If you're still doing winter tasks, because if you look outside, things have died and things have fall off. Now people are starting to think about what they've planned for this year. They're already about to implement things and what they're going to be doing for spring and summer based off of sales and business and retail and how things work. You need to think about how you're planning your business also based off of seasons. That's a big point. And like I said, can you go to the next slide, Nate?
Yep.
You can go to this link on the screen. I think last time we dropped it in the chat room, but it's unbouncedpages.com/EagleView 2017. Set up a free consultation with us. Like I said, there's no commitment. If you really want to get there, just go ahead and try us out, fill it out, and let's get on a call or get on a Skype and see how we can help. That's it. It's that simple.
Absolutely. We're here to help. So thanks again for being on the webinar, and hopefully got some great little golden nuggets to go and grow your business. And we look forward to sitting down and chatting with you.
Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, everyone.